Swim. A period of time during which you swim. For example, let's go for a swim.
Sword. A weapon with a long metal blade, equals sharp cutting part, and a handle. For example, to draw/sheath a sword, equals to take it out of/ put it into its cover.
Table. A piece of furniture that consists of a flat top supported by legs. For example, at A the table.
Tackle. To make a determined effort to deal with a difficult problem or situation. For example, the government is determined to tackle inflation. Tag. A small piece of paper, cloth, plastic, etc. attached to something to identify it or give information about it. For example, he put name tags on all his shirts. Tail. The part that sticks out at the back of the body of a bird, an animal or a fish, which the animal can move from side to side or up and down. For example, the dog ran up.
Tap. A device for controlling the flow of water from a pipe into a bath or sink. For example, bath taps.
Target.
Target. A result that you try to achieve. For example, to meet/hit a target.
Task. A piece of work that somebody has to do, especially a hard or unpleasant one. For example, to accomplish/perform/undertake/complete a task.
Technique.
Technique. A particular way of doing something, especially one in which you have to learn special skills. For example, management techniques.
Teenage.
Teenage. Between 13 and 19 years old, connected with people of this age. For example, a teenage girl/boy.
Teenager. A person who is between 13 and 19 years old. For example, a magazine aimed at teenagers.
Teens. The years of a person's life when they are between 13 and 19 years old. For example, in your teens.
Telephone.
Telephone. A system for talking to somebody else over long distances, using wires or radio, a machine used for this. For example, the telephone rang and Pat answered it.
Telephone.
Telephone. A system for talking to somebody else over long distances, using wires or radio, a machine used for this. For example, the telephone rang and Pat answered it.
Tell. To give information to somebody by speaking or writing. For example, tell something to somebody.
Tempt. To attract somebody or make somebody want to do or have something, even if they know it is wrong. For example, tempt somebody.
Tendency. If somebody/something has a particular tendency, they are likely to behave or act in a particular way. For example, to display artistic tendencies.
Tenure. The period of time when somebody holds an important job, especially a political one, the act of holding an important job. For example, his 4-year tenure as president.
Term. A word or phrase used as the name of something, especially one connected with a particular type of language. For example, a technical, a legal, a generic term.
Terrify. To make somebody feel extremely frightened. For example, terrify somebody.
Test. An examination of somebody's knowledge or ability, consisting of questions for them to answer or activities for them to perform. For example, an IQ, the fitness test.
Testing.
Testing. The activity of testing somebody/something in order to find something out, see if it works, etc. For example, nuclear testing.
Texture. The way a surface, substance, or piece of cloth feels when you touch it, for example how rough, smooth, hard, or soft it is. For example, the soft texture of velvet. Thank. To tell somebody that you are grateful for something. For example, thank somebody for something.
Thanks.
Thanks. Used to show that you are grateful to somebody for something they have done. For example, how are you? Fine.
Thanks.
Thanks. Used to show that you are grateful to somebody for something they have done. For example, how are you? Fine. That. To such a degree, so. For example, I can't walk that far, equals as far as that. That. To such a degree, so. For example, I can't walk that far, equals as far as that.
The. Used to refer to somebody/something that has already been mentioned or is easily understood. For example, there were 3 questions. The first 2 were relatively easy, but the third one was hard. Thick. Having a larger distance between opposite sides or surfaces than other similar objects or than normal. For example, a thick slice of bread.
Thin. Having a smaller distance between opposite sides or surfaces than other similar objects or than normal. For example, cut the vegetables into thin strips.
Think. To have a particular idea or opinion about something/somebody, to believe something. For example, think that.
Threat.
Threat. A statement in which you tell somebody that you will punish or harm them, especially if they do not do what you want. For example, threat against somebody/something. Through. From one end or side of something to the other. For example, put the coffee in the filter and let the water run through.
Throw.
Throw. To send something from your hand through the air by moving your hand or arm quickly. For example, practice throwing and catching.
Thumb.
Thumb. The short, thick finger at the side of the hand, slightly apart from the other 4. For example, she still sucks her thumb when she's worried.
Tie. A long, narrow piece of cloth worn around the neck, especially by men, with a knot in front. For example, he was dressed impeccably in a suit and tie. Time. What is measured in minutes, hours, days, etc. For example, the world exists in time and space.
Tip. A small piece of advice about something practical. For example, tip on for doing something.
Tissue.
Tissue. A piece of soft paper, used especially as a handkerchief. For example, a box of tissues.
Toe. One of the 5 small parts that stick out from the foot, any similar part on the foot of an animal or bird. For example, the big/little toe equals the largest/smallest toe.
Together. With or near to somebody something else, with each other. For example, we grew up together. Toilet. A large bowl attached to a pipe that you sit on or stand over when you get rid of waste matter from your body. For example, have you flushed the toilet?
Tolerance. the quality of being willing to accept or tolerate somebody/something, especially opinions or behavior that you may not agree with, or people who are not like you. For example, she had no tolerance for jokes of any kind.
Tolerate. To allow somebody to do something that you do not agree with or like. For example, tolerate something.
Tongue.
Tongue. The soft part in the mouth that moves around, used for tasting, swallowing, speaking, etc. For example, he clicked his tongue to attract their attention.
Topic.
Topic. A subject that you talk, write, or learn about. For example, the main topic of conversation was Tom's new girlfriend.
Torture. The act of causing somebody severe pain in order to punish them or make them say or do something. For example, many of the refugees have suffered torture.
Touch. The sense that enables you to be aware of things and what they are like when you put your hands and fingers on them. For example, the sense of touch. Touch. The sense that enables you to be aware of things and what they are like when you put your hands and fingers on them. For example, the sense of touch.
Towards. In the direction of somebody or something. For example, they were heading towards the German border.
Towel.
Towel. A piece of cloth or paper used for drying things, especially your body. For example, help yourself to a clean towel.
Trace. Trace. To find or discover somebody something by looking carefully for them it. For example, we finally traced him to an address in Chicago.
Track. Rails equals metal bars that a train moves along. For example, railway or railroad tracks.
Tragic. Making you feel very sad, usually because somebody has died or suffered a lot. For example, he was killed in a tragic accident at the age of 24.
Trail. A long line or series of marks that is left by somebody or something. For example, a trail of blood. Trail. A long line or series of marks that is left by somebody or something. For example, a trail of blood.
Transfer.
Transfer. The act of moving somebody something from one place, group, or job to another, an occasion when this happens. For example, electronic data transfer.
Transfer.
Transfer. The act of moving somebody something from one place, group, or job to another, an occasion when this happens. For example, electronic data transfer.